Hey guys, welcome to my 2023 college football best bets for this coming week for the bowl games as well as the first round of the playoffs. Like I said, we will be looking at part 4 here. We already have parts 1 through 3, but we're focusing on the fourth portion right now, which is the December 30th games through the January 1st games. And we're looking at the best bets. So the over, unders, money lines, and the spreads. So let's go ahead and get started. Hit that like button and subscribe. The very first game that we have kicking things off Saturday, December 30th at 12 p.m. on ESPN. We have number 11 Ole Miss sitting at 10-2 versus number 10 Penn State sitting at 10-2. This is the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Penn State comes into this game. They are 3.5-point favorites here, and the over-under is 48.5. When you look at the team stats for both of these teams have 10 wins. Both teams trying to get to 11 wins as of right now. We have James Franklin versus Lane Kiffin. Ole Miss comes into this game. They average 34.8 points per game. They have a very good offense. They have Jackson Dart at quarterback closing in on 3,000 yards. They have Quinton Junkins at running back, and they have Trey Harris at wide receiver. Penn State comes in. They're averaging 37.2 points per game. They did fire the offensive coordinator, Urich. So the main thing holding them back was their vertical passing game. It's gotten a little better since they got rid of the coordinator. They have Drew Aller at quarterback, they have Keaton Allen at running back, and they have Lambert Smith at wide receiver. On defense, this is where you really see the separation of these teams. Ole Miss, they give up 22.3 points per game. Penn State gives up 11.4 points per game. Penn State has a top 5 defense. I have Penn State getting the win here. 27-23. Covering the spread, and I'm going with the over, mainly because they can rely on their defense. Defense does travel for bowl games. The next game that we're looking at 2 p.m. on ABC, we have 6-6 Auburn versus 7-5 Maryland. This is the Trans-Perfect Music City Bowl. Auburn comes into this game 7-point favorites here, and the over-under is 46.5. So Auburn, they've had a lot of issues on the offensive side of the ball so far this season, trying to get touchdowns. That's the main thing holding them back. Peyton Thorne has really fallen apart since he left Michigan State. Maryland, they actually have a pretty decent offense led by Tuavailoa, but he is in the transfer portal. So the main guy that they had on the field passing the ball is now gone, will not be playing this game. So who they're going to have at quarterback, as of right now, we don't know what to expect from them. But Tuavailoa was having a really strong year so far this year. He was closing in on 3,400 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 11 picks, but he is gone. So look for Auburn to try to run the ball, try to keep the ball out of Maryland's hands. As of right now, we don't know what to expect from Maryland because their starting quarterback will not be playing this game. Auburn does come in. They average 27.3 points per game. Maryland averages 29.6 points per game. And on defense, Auburn gives up 21.9 points per game. Maryland gives up 23.3 points per game. I am going to go with Auburn to get the win here. 28-20. I have them covering the spread, and I'm also going to go with that over. The next game that we're going to be looking at is at 4 p.m. on ESPN. We have number 6 Georgia Bulldogs sitting at 12-1 versus number 5 Florida State sitting at 13-0. The only undefeated Power 5 conference champion left out of the playoffs. This is the Capital One Orange Bowl. Georgia here. They come in as 16.5-point favorites here, and the over-under is 44.5. Basically, with Georgia, they have a couple players sitting out. They did have some players go into the transfer portal, but Carson Beck will be playing. He's closing in on 3,800 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 picks. They don't really have a running back number 1, but they do have a solid running back core, and they do have a very solid defense. For Florida State, basically the entire roster that you've seen the whole season, they're not going to be playing this game. So they're basically going to be out everyone. Jordan Travis did get hurt at the very end of the season. Trey Benson not playing. Coleman not playing. The whole wide receiver core sitting. Verse on defense is sitting. So they're basically going to be playing with their second and third string. And their backup quarterback who was going to start this game, Runbacher, he went into the transfer portal. So now they're down to their third string quarterback as well. Georgia comes in. They're 38. They average 38.4 points per game. Florida State averages 37 points per game. On defense, they both have top 15 defenses. Georgia gives up 16.6 points per game. Florida State gives up 15.9 points per game. But like we said, Florida State's going to find it really hard to get first downs. Their whole team is out. Their whole team is sitting this game. I have Georgia getting the win here, 30 to 13. I have them covering that spread. I'm going with the under as of right now, but that 16.5-point spread, to me, that's way too low. That's probably going to move up a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if it's anywhere from, to be honest, from 20 to 25. So once game time comes, that spread is going to jump up a whole lot more. And I would not be surprised, if Georgia does win this game, like a 40-0 game also. But no matter what the spread is, I would not be surprised if they cover it. The next game we're looking at is at 4:30 p.m. on the CW network. We have 11-2 Toledo versus 8-4 Wyoming. This is the Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl. Wyoming comes in this game. They're 3.5-point favorites here. Over-under is 44.5. Toledo sits at 11-2. They have the hands-down better offensive roster. They have Finn at quarterback, closing in on 2,700 yards, 22 touchdowns, 9 picks. They have Boone at running back, closing in on 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns. And they have Newton at wide receiver. What Wyoming has is a very physical team with a very physical defense. Looking at the team stats here, Toledo averages 33.6 points per game. Wyoming averages 26.1 points per game. So on offense, it is kind of favored towards Toledo. And on defense, Toledo gives up 20.6 points per game. And Wyoming gives up 22.9 points per game. So Toledo has the better offensive and the better defensive stats. That's why I'm going to go with Toledo to win this game. 31-27. So I'm going to go with that plus 3.5. And I'm also going with the over. Do not underestimate Wyoming, though. They are a very tough team. Their games are usually very close. So if they won this game, I would not be surprised. But as of right now, I just think that the Rockets have too much firepower. We're now moving on to our January 1st games, our 2024 first college football games at 1 p.m. on ESPN. We have undefeated number 23 Liberty sitting at 13-0 versus number 8 Oregon Ducks sitting at 11-2. There are only 2 losses, both to Washington. This is the Verbo Fiesta Bowl. Oregon comes into this game. They are pretty big favorites here, so they come in as 17-point favorites, and the over-under is 67.5. That's a massive over-under there, and they have Oregon beating Liberty pretty handily. When you look at Liberty's offense, they have a pretty good quarterback. They have Caden Salter at quarterback. He is a dual-threat quarterback. They have a lot of different weapons. They can run it. They can throw it. They have a good offense. They have a pretty decent defense. But for the Oregon Ducks, do not underestimate them. So they have Bo Nix coming in here. He will be playing his final college football game. He's been playing college football for about 15 seasons now. This is, as of right now, this is the last game. So we should not see him any season after this point. But he could somehow get a 10th redshirt year somehow. But he is going to be playing. He was the Heisman favorite up to them losing to Washington. So definitely do not underestimate Oregon. They are one of the better rounded teams. Looking at the team stats here, Liberty, they average 40.8 points per game. Oregon averages 44.2 points per game. And on defense, Liberty gives up 22.7 points per game. Oregon gives up 17.3 points per game. Like we were saying, the Ducks are hands down one of the best rounded teams. Nix is closing in on 4,200 yards passing, 40 touchdowns, and only 3 picks. And when you look at the running back position, they have Irving and they have Franklin at wide receiver. But Liberty has Salter at quarterback, they have Cooley at running back, and they have C.J. Daniels at wide receiver. So definitely a pretty stacked team. But I'm definitely going to be going with the Oregon Ducks to be getting the win. I have them winning 44-24. I have them covering the spread, and I'm going to go with the over. I definitely feel that Bo Nix and the Ducks are going to want to go out on a high note here since this is their final run. The next game we're looking at 1 p.m. on ABC, we have number 17 Iowa Hawkeyes sitting at 10-3, playing number 21 Tennessee Volunteers sitting at 8-4. This is the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Tennessee's coming into this game 8.5-point favorites here, and the over-under is 36.5. For Iowa, they have one of the most god-awful, one of the worst defenses you will ever see in your life. If this game is on TV, save yourself the time. Do not watch it. It's going to be boring. It's going to be sloppy. Kirk Ferentz's son, though, this should be his final game, and then he should be fired. I don't trust Kirk Ferentz to hire anyone who calls plays after 1980, though. So I don't think it's going to get much better. But anyways, they have a solid top 5 defense. For Tennessee, Milton did go into the transfer portal yesterday at the quarterback position. That's a big loss for them. He has been their starting quarterback, so they will be going with their 5-star backup. He will finally be getting reps. People have been asking for him the whole season. Tennessee obviously has the better offense. They have Wright at running back closing in on 1,100 yards. They have White at wide receiver. Looking at the team stats here, you have Iowa coming in. They average a pathetic 16.6 points per game. That's the right number. And Tennessee averages 31.5 points per game. But on defense, Iowa gives up 13.2 points per game. That's a top 5 national defense. And Tennessee gives up 22.0 points per game. With Iowa's defense, that can always keep them in any game. That can keep the game close. Plus, Milton is not playing. So they also lost their starting quarterback. Iowa can definitely win this game. But I'm just going to go with Tennessee. I have them winning 17-14. So I'm going with the plus 8.5. I do not have Tennessee covering the spread. And I'm also going with the under. Why am I going with the under? Because every single Iowa game is always the under. That's just the way it is. I tried to fight that at one point, but I'm just going to ride that till they actually score some points. The next game that we're going to be looking at is at 12 p.m. on ESPN2. We have 7-5 Wisconsin Badgers versus number 13 LSU sitting at 9-3. This is the RealQuest Bowl. LSU comes into this game. They are 10-point favorites here. Over-under is 55.5. Props to Wisconsin for they only have 7 wins, but yet they made it to a New Year's Bowl. I don't know how, but they did. With Wisconsin, obviously they had a big offensive change. They got Phil Longo as the offensive coordinator. They had a coaching change. They're going to get there, but they do have to completely flip this roster, and they also had a lot of injuries. Tanner Mordecai is supposed to be playing this game, so he is back to being healthy. They do have a very deep running back room, and they have a very solid defense. For LSU, Jaden Daniels did win the Heisman, but he's not going to be playing this game. That's a massive loss. He's not going to be there. LSU has a god-awful defense, but their offense can score with anyone in the country. Without Jaden Daniels, he's their leading passer. He's also their leading rusher. Neighbors is probably not going to be playing this game at the wide receiver position. He is a top 10 pick. He's a beast. So LSU's second string guys, they're going to have to step up. But their second string guys are better than Wisconsin's starting rotations. Looking at the team stats here, Wisconsin averages 22.8 points per game. LSU averages 46.4 points per game. And on defense, Wisconsin only gives up 18.9 points per game. LSU gives up 27.8 points per game. There could be opportunities for the Badgers to get some touchdowns, but I have LSU getting the win here. 28-17, covering the spread, but I'm going with the under. Obviously we're kind of going into this game blind because Jaden Daniels is not there, but could it be the over? Yes, because LSU's defense will definitely give up some points, but I just don't have their offense being as powerful for this bowl game. So I'm going to go with the under as of right now. We're now moving on to the first round of the playoffs at 5 p.m. on ESPN. Number 4 Alabama sitting at 12-1 versus number 1 Michigan sitting at 13-0. This is the college football semifinal at the Rose Bowl. Michigan comes in here 2-point favorites, over under 44.5. This game is almost virtually a pick-em. The reason Michigan is the favorite as of right now is because they are the number 1 team. So technically, because they're number 1, they should be the favorite when they play number 4. Alabama, they have Jalen Milroe. He got better every single week throughout the year since they lost to Texas in week 2. He's closing in on 2,800 yards, 23 touchdowns, 6 picks. He can also run the ball. Michigan, they have a very deep running back room, led by Blake Corum. They're very deep there. They're not as good on offense as they were last year. The very first half of the season, they were letting things up. J.J. McCarthy looked great. They were throwing the ball. They were running the ball. They were playing defense. But after the first half, going into the second half, the offense completely started sputtering. J.J. McCarthy has not thrown for 150 yards in several games now. That's not reassuring if you're a Michigan Wolverines fan. Where's their passing game? Because you could potentially have to be in a shootout. Michigan's not built for shootouts. They are built for very slow type of football. There's nothing wrong with that. But if this game gets sped up and they're forced to have to throw the ball, run the ball, score quickly, can they do that? We have not seen them do that the whole season. Looking at the team stats here, Bama does average on offense per game. They average 35.1 points per game. Michigan averages 36.7 points per game. So they're pretty even there. This is not the best offense that these teams have fielded in the last 5 years. On defense, Bama gives up 18.4 points per game, which is top 30. It's not great, but it's definitely a good defense. Michigan only gives up 9.5 points per game. That's number 1 defense in the country, 9.5 yards per game. So Michigan, they are going to be looking to bottle up Milroe, keep him in the pocket, force him to have to beat you vertically. He's not good on short passes, but he can throw the deep ball as good as anyone. They have playmakers there. He's very accurate on the deep passes. Michigan will be fine with that. They just don't want him scrambling for first downs and extending plays. So this game is going to come down to how good will their linebacker core be, how much pressure will they get on Milroe. I'm going to go with Michigan winning this game, 24-20, covering the spread. I'm going with the under. My confidence on this game is very low. Bama could also easily win it 24-20. But I have Michigan getting the win here. I just have more faith in their defense. I'm hoping that their offense can score some points here. If not, they're going to have some trouble keeping up with Alabama. The next game we're looking at is Alabama's only loss of the season at 8:45 on ESPN. Number 3, Texas Longhorns sitting at 12-1. They did beat Alabama week 2. They'll be playing number 2, Washington, undefeated Pac-12 champs, 13-0. This is also college football semifinal at All-State Sugar Bowl. Texas is coming into this game 4.5-point favorites here. The over-under is 63.5. Texas, this is going to be a really good quarterback matchup. You have Quinn Ewers versus Michael Penix Jr. Michael Penix does lead the nation passing, 4,300 yards, 33 touchdowns, 9 picks. Their running back game has also really stepped up with Dylan Johnson, and they have one of the best wide receiver cores in the country, led by Arome Odunze, closing in on 1,500 yards and 14 touchdowns. They can throw the ball. They can run the ball. This is a very deadly team. But Texas, their wide receiver core is not to be underestimated. They have Worthy. They have Mitchell. So it's going to come down to how good is Quinn Ewers going to be this game. He came into this season as a perennial first-round pick, completely fell off, did not put up first-round numbers so far this season, except for the Alabama game when he played his best and the Oklahoma State game in the Big 12 championship when he lit it up for like 450 yards. If that Quinn Ewers shows up, there's going to be a really long game for Washington because Texas is the more balanced team. They can throw it, they can run it, and they have a top 20 defense. They have the number 3 rushing defense. So they'll be looking to shut down Dylan Johnson and force Penix to beat you vertically. Penix can definitely do that. He has a really good core, and he gets the balls to his playmakers, throws a beautiful deep pass. But can he do that consistently over 4 quarters while also keeping up with Texas scoring points? Looking at the team stats here, Texas averages 36.2 points per game, Washington 37.7 points per game, so they're virtually tied there. And on defense, Texas gives up 17.5 points a game. That's a top 20 defense. Washington gives up 23.6 points per game. I'm going to go with the Texas Longhorns getting the win here, 34-24, covering the spread, and I'm also going with the under as well. Could this game be over? Could it be a shootout? Could it be a 45-38 game? Definitely. That is possible. But I think Texas's defense will somewhat be able to control this game, keep the game close, and then Texas will get a late fourth quarter touchdown, and that's what pushes them over, and they win the game by 10. So I have, as of right now, Michigan versus Texas in the national championship. If it's not Michigan-Texas, it'll be Texas-Alabama. And then we'll be making our national championship prediction video next week when that game comes up. Hit that like button and subscribe. That'll complete our video today. If you have any comments, drop them below, and I'll make sure to respond. Thanks.